Today, we are going to learn how can you look for and make use of structure to solve problems. Maps from two different ski resorts show a 1-mile cross-country ski trail for beginners. Show where to mark 2500ths, 5/10ths, and 7500ths on each trail. How can you determine where to mark the points on each drawing? So if you look to the right, you have one trail that's longer than the other, but they both go to 1 mile. So what I always like to do when I'm looking at different lengths of number lines that equal the same amount, I always start with 0.5 because that's 1/2. 0.5 or 50% is the same as halfway through. So I go to each one and I find the halfway mark, which is right here on that trail and right here on that trail, about. And then I would label each one 0.5. Then I know 0.25 is in between 0 and 0.5. So once again, I will find the halfway point in between each one, just like that, and put 0.25, 0.25. And 0.75 is halfway between 0.5 and 1 mile. So I would find halfway there, put 0.75, 0.75. And that's how I would personally do it. Thinking about how the book is telling us, it says, I need to analyze each drawing and decide about where the given decimal should be located on each point, which is what we just did. So, how can I use structure to solve problems? I can break the problem into simpler parts, just like we did with putting the 0.5 or 1/2 first. Use what I know about decimal meanings to locate on the points. Well, we know that 0.5 is the same as 1/2, 0.25 is the same as 1/4, and 0.75 is the same as 3/4. And use equivalent forms of numbers. Look in part C. The size of a decimal depends on the size of the whole. The size of the whole is not the same for each drawing, so we need to divide each whole into half to show 0.5 on each whole. So just like we did on the first one, here is the first one, here is the second one. They both equal 1 mile. So first we're going to find half, which is right in the middle of both. Then you can plot the other ones. Then divide each half into equal parts to show 0.25 and 0.75. Well, 0.25 would be in between the start and 0.5, and 0.75 would be in between 0.5 and 1 whole. Let's look at the bottom on the Convince Me. It says, use the drawing from the trail shown. Where is the 1.5 or 1.5 mile mark on the trail? How did you decide? Well, if 0.5 is already shown, then 1 mile would be about the same distance. So it would be about right here. It would be 1 mile. And so then 1.5 would be about halfway, or about the same distance again. So we have about 1.5, I think, would go right here. And then the ending would be probably 2. When you're doing problems like this, always find where the hole is and then put your 0.5 or your half down to help you determine where the rest of the points would go. Let's do the guided practice together. Margie painted 4/10 of her blue banner. Helena painted 5/10 of her blue banner. Complete the drawings to show the whole or one for each banner. Okay, so 4/10 is going to be less than 5/10. And on the second one, 5/10 is half. So I'm going to do Helena's banner first because I think it's going to be easier to see the whole. Since 5/10 is half, then I know that 1 whole is going to be right here. I'm going to label that with a 1 because that 5/10 right here would be halfway between 0 and 1. So now I'm going to look at Margie's banner. Margie's banner is 4/10. That's less than half. So I know that 1 whole is going to be a greater distance than this amount right here, because that's only 0.4. So 1/2 is going to be all the way over here. We are counting by 0.2. So this would be 0.2, then we have 0.4, then we're going to have 0.6. This point right here is going to be 0.8, and this is going to be 1/2. So 1 for Margie's banner is going to be right here, and for Helena's banner is going to be right here. Number 2, explain how you determine where to draw 1/2 for each banner. Okay, for Helena's banner, I doubled the amount. So, for example, from 0 to 0.5, I just doubled it right here. And for Margie's banner, I labeled the number line by 2/10, 4/10, 6/10, and then by 1 to determine the distance to 1. So we have 2/10, then 4/10, then 6/10, then 8/10, then 1/2. Do the drawings show that 4/10 is less than 5/10? Explain. In this case, no, they do not show that 4/10 is less than 5/10. 4/10 is less than 5/10, but the drawings do not show it because the drawings do not show that 4/10 is less than 5/10 because the number lines are not equal. 5/10 is greater than 4/10, and it would show on a number line that is equal. Go ahead and try to do the problems on page 659. Then come show me.